welcome to the Q&A edition of the Cosmetics Business Podcast. I'm Julia Wray.
And I'm Amanda May. Hi Julia, how are you?
I'm good. It's really funny if you caught our podcast last week on dupes, because I accidentally bought a fake.
Oh, really?
Absolutely. You'd think that being in this industry for as long as I have, I'd be able to avoid that. But no, I found my ideal product. It was a Giorgio Armani Lip Maestro lipstick in this fantastic colour. I had a tiny little sample and I wanted to get the real thing. And could I find it anywhere? Could I? Hell. So I went to the deepest, darkest depths of the internet and I ordered one online, and it arrived and the colour looked fine, but the smell and the texture, and I just thought, oh, I've been duped. Like, it's not a dupe. I'm the dupe. So yes, it can happen to anyone, people. Let us know if you've ever accidentally bought a fake of one of your favourite brands because you couldn't find it anywhere else, or you were just looking for a cheaper version.
Yeah, my mum fell victim actually because she loves Estee Lauder Youth Dew, which is like their original fragrance, and she bought it off Amazon, but from a third-party seller. Like, you've got to look out for those third-party sellers.
You do.
Because it looked exactly the same, but it did not smell the same.
The smell is the giveaway. And then the texture and So I feel quite stupid, and I'm glad to know I'm not the only one. All right, shall we go straight into our first question?
Yes, let's.
Lovely. We've got a sustainability one here asking, how do brands balance their eco-friendly practices with cost and quality? And that is from Masalan Hussein Tanim. So thank you, Masalan. That is a really, really fantastic question. So for me, there are two parts to this. And that's firstly, balancing eco-friendly with quality, and then also balancing eco-friendly with cost. And personally, I'll probably argue that eco-friendly and quality can and should go hand in hand. I mean, I don't know what examples you've seen, Amanda, that have jumped out at you.
Well, it's hard because I think, true luxury means not having to choose between the planet and your beauty regime.
Absolutely.
But obviously sustainable beauty can be complicated in many regards. I mean, as an example, it's a hard balance for brands, like say you've got a glass container, for example, which might be more easily recyclable than a plastic container. But then if it's produced and imported from afar, the air miles kind of negate any of the
100%.
sustainability
and glass
gains.
Is heavy. Glass is not light.
So it's hard, but brands shouldn't shy away from it. I mean, immediately, two brands that came to mind during this when I was thinking about it was Neil Yar's Remedies. I mean,
great brand.
Always been an example of like a great brand that balances eco-friendly practices with quality. Sustainability and ethical sourcing has always been an important focus for the brand. And, I think one of the key things to talk about them is that they were acknowledged as the world's first carbon neutral high street retailer back in 2008. So they've been...
Oh, that long ago?
Yeah.
They've been doing this for a long time. It's not a recent thing,
They've been hammering it home for a long time. And, the brand now uses 92% certified natural ingredients in its products. It's got an eco-factory in Dorset, which operates on 100% renewable energy. And it's also aiming to use just recycled plastic bottles by 2025. So, but their products are luxurious. They look beautiful. They're scented beautifully.
That blue,
made well.
I feel, is really synonymous with quality.
A royal blue.
So gorgeous.
I mean, you look at them and I don't think you ever doubt the quality, but you also look at them and you think, no, they really do care about the planet, but they've done it from the core. It's always been part of their kind of key ethos. So they stand out to me. And another one is cosmeceutical brand Medik8.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
They've been doing some really interesting things.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that they've been doing for a while is kind of targeting waste within its manufacturing and operation processes, as well as the packaging, with the aim to be a zero waste to landfill company by 2025. But the products are still super high end, really high end formulations of vitamin A. They're loved by beauty professionals as well as consumers. And I think they don't compromise on quality along the way, but they're very open about what they're doing, and they share sustainability reports every year. So there's real traceability, transparency, and like I say, you never question the quality, but they are constantly striving to be better.
Absolutely.
And they're even finding that sometimes some of the things they're doing is actually more cost efficient for them in their manufacturing processes. So, I think it's a thing of brands just have to dig a bit deeper I understand it is difficult.
You're absolutely right. And I love that you picked up Medik8 there, because I remember seeing that they have purely aluminium samples now. And aluminium is a fantastic material for a high-end brand that wants to be ecologically friendly. It's very easily recyclable. It's recycled everywhere, and it's infinitely recyclable. So there's so many things about aluminium that make it fit into this sustainable but also high-end and quality aspect as well. Another brand that jumps out at me is Chanel.
Oh yeah, of course.
So obviously, Chanel is synonymous with luxury and quality. It's a very, very high-end brand. But it's number one de Chanel line. Sorry, I'm not going to do a French accent. That's a really good example. It's cream in that range. The lid is actually made from something called Sulapak, which, if you look at it, it looks like a standard normal plastic lid, high-end. But Sulapak is actually from ingredients from natural orange, and it's like 97% or something natural. So it's bio-based. But what's even better, and I really love this, it contains byproducts of camellia seed shells. Now, camellia extract is actually the main ingredient in the cream itself.
Oh,
so
I
you
love
have this.
That.
It's lovely, isn't it? It's this is circular, eco-friendly story here, but in which is a really high-end brand, possibly the high-end brand. Like you've also got the Dior's, etc. But you think Chanel, you think luxury beauty, fashion, and handbags and everything. Another interesting point was Chanel recently brought out its 31 Le Rouge Matte lipsticks. And this is the first, you mentioned glass, the first Chanel lipstick to come in glass packaging. And it's also refillable. And the idea is that it's an heirloom, it's a keepsake. You can pass it down like a watch. You won't have to buy another one. And I don't know, have you seen these on Estee Lauder's website? It reminds me of those, the powders and solid perfumes.
So lovely.
Oh my God. I keep just like leaving these around as hints to friends and family members. Like, oh, get me one.
They remind me a bit. They're very vintage looking. They make me think of like stuff you'd see on your nan's dresser. Like
and I think they're leaning into that because your nan would have done that.
Yeah, and the beautiful time capsule pieces. But I love that though, because obviously Chanel are doing sustainability things and they would never put something on their products that didn't look or feel luxurious. So they are a great example of you can do it and not be like so in the face with people about it.
There's zero compromise. Yeah. And they are talking about it, but it's not like you sometimes maybe, I don't know, 10, 15 years ago would look at something sustainable and go, that's eco-friendly, but it's a bit maybe crusty is the right word. And obviously there's no crustiness with Chanel. And there's not with Neil Ziad or Medik8 either.
Because that's what I like about them. It's like obviously sustainability is at the core of it all, but I don't feel like they're sort of using it as the anchor straight away off the bat, being like, oh, this is sustainable. Like they're not just chucking it on. It's actually like a core part of the business. Because sometimes it does feel like sometimes brands are a bit like, oh, we've changed the caps. And it's like, okay.
I know, I'm completely with you. I feel for true sustainability, you have to have product design right from the off.
Yeah.
So, for example, if you're getting down to the core of things, look at Lush. Is it a solid product? Can it be a solid product? Does it need any packaging at all? And then you almost kind of build up from there based on what it is. And so, for example, our OP mentioned cost as well as quality. If we're looking at cost, so monomaterial aluminium we've spoken about just now, that's great. But for example, a monomaterial lipstick can be achieved in stock polypropylene and polyethylene terephthalate as well. And this would replace traditionally used plastics like PMMA and styrenes and stuff. They look good and shiny, but there's no realistic recycling stream. For PP and PET, we have two long-term recycling streams there because of, for example, plastic bottles recycling or food containers recycling. So we can piggyback on that as an industry. But you're absolutely right. Look at the fundamental design of your product. Don't just add in the cap, as you say. Choose something that's maybe been lightweighted, the full product. There's a lot of choice here. A lot of suppliers are doing that. A lot of materials and weight reduction. And this, of course, means carbon reduction in transportation. We mentioned glass being quite heavy. This lightweighting is a really great way to reduce transportation costs. It saves you money, but also reducing carbon as well. So it's a win-win situation. So these two things are not divergent. In many ways, they can converge. And there's so many other things. Like you can look at the shape of your product, what master batches, color master batches are used to make it more likely to be picked up in recycling, for example. So you've got all of these different things. That's in the packaging side. obviously, when you're looking at like sustainable alternatives to petroleum-derived ingredients, that may be a little bit contentious. There's a couple of those around. Yeah, they're more expensive. And I guess for consumers, if they're maybe used to sort of a product with silicones in it for your hair care, they're used to that slippery feeling, that lubriciousness, there will be a trade-off in terms of maybe what, not quality, but maybe what they're used to a certain extent. But what I think has been really interesting, I noticed this last in cosmetics and the one before actually as well, in cosmetics being a big ingredients trade show. For those of you who haven't been, do go. It's really interesting. But there was a lot of focus on products that kind of met halfway. So they would have greater naturality than historically used ingredients, but they either perform to an equivalent level or even a higher level. And that's basically just taking some steps to address the issue of either, going, we're natural, we're entirely plant-based, but it's maybe not performing to the level that the consumer wants, especially if you're talking about swapping things in and changing a formulation as opposed to a formulation from the start. And then that, okay, this works in a way that the consumer likes, but it is, petroleum derived, or it's not natural, or whatever it might be, or that there's issues maybe surrounding it, either real or perceived. We have talked about them in the past as well. So yeah, I think you mentioned this earlier on, and I think it's the important thing is there's so many ways to be sustainable.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say infinite ways, but I think the main thing is to look down, to look at your ethos, to look at your calculations, to look at what's important to you. I think biotech is going to be a really interesting area for leveling the playing field here because, you've got products which can be made in a very low comparative resource intensive way in comparison to traditional extracts. So you've got something that is going to be, you're going to be able to make a lot using much less, both in terms of money and resources. So that's going to be an absolute game changer as it escalates. I mean, we've seen big beauty companies like BSF and L'Oreal and others band together, for example, to invest in biotech versions of palm oil derived products. So this is so big. So I could honestly, I could be here for days rattling on. I really could. I feel like Amanda might be going to sleep right now because I'm just yelling at her about sustainability. Yeah,
it's just so complex. There's so many layers to it, and so if you're going to do it, like you say, you've got to pick your battles, pick where you want to start, because it's really hard to be fully 360 sustainable. But like you say, there's new tech and stuff coming in all the time, which is hopefully going to make it easier for brands going forward. But it is a bit of a minefield. I think it's harder if you've not started off with it as your base, rather than some of the companies that have. But then, like you say, Lush is a great example because I think they have created products, like you say, that need no packaging, which is great. But,
I mean, they really reinvented the wheel with that.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Right?
And, I think probably before they started it, there was probably people saying to them, consumers won't like this. It's a big change in behaviour. But actually, their consumers love it. So sometimes I think barriers to change is sometimes just based on what we think the status quo is or what consumers may or may not like. But actually, time and time again, change is accepted. It's proven to work. I mean, Lush is a great example because they have so many products that are unpackaged now. Their shampoo bars, which is like one of their best-selling products now, no packaging.
And you can see the innovation behind what it takes to bring out a product. They will probably come across in the process of making it so many different potential barriers that wouldn't necessarily affect a company bringing out a traditional liquid product, but they work their way around it. And look at look at the amount of SKUs that are naked, as they call them.
And you think they're known for it now. It's like a positive point of difference in the market for them. I mean, in a way, they've kind of overtaken the Body Shop in that arena.
Oh, definitely.
As the high street retailer that does it and does it brilliantly.
Although I'd be really interested to see what Body Shop will now do.
Yes.
Now that new management, you start.
Well, I was thinking about them when we brought this up. It's just hard because they've gone through a bit of a turbulent time. So it'll be interesting, like you say, now that they're under new ownership, to see what they do, because it seems like they're going to lean heavily back into their roots, which I'm excited for.
I hope they will. They've gone back to Brighton, haven't they, with the headquarters?
Which is where their first store opened. So I think it's going to be interesting because they really were champions of sustainability, but quality, and also being advocates for many issues. So it'll be exciting to see where they lean in this again under their new ownership.
Definitely. And as any podcast listeners know, me and Amanda are both huge fans of The Body Shop. We all are cosmetics business. So yeah. But back to the fundamental. Have a look at what is right for you. Do your research, do your calculations. There are many, and I can't remember any of the names off the top of my head, but there are many services which allow you to do that and to work out whether things like, carbon footprint or water usage or whatever it is the most important to you. And some of these things may be conflicting, but there is absolutely no reason why sustainability should impinge on quality or indeed cost as well.
Here.
So is that us done?
I think that is.
That was a really great question there. So do keep sending them in, guys. The more, the merrier.
Absolutely. Keep your questions coming. Send us a message on the normal podcast platforms, social media, or email cosmetics@hpcimedia.com.
Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.
See you next week.
In the meantime, stay up to date with the latest beauty news, trends, and analysis by subscribing to cosmeticsbusiness.com.